Welcome to the Assembling Inclusion podcast. On this show, we feature different programs, individuals, and initiatives focused on being more inclusive of individual needs. We invite you to learn right alongside us. If you want some additional resources or access to our courses, please visit our website or follow us on social media. But for right now, let's get right to the episode. Coming up next on the Assembling Inclusion podcast.
From our little market research, we found that about of the general population, about 20% of the people play an instrument. But in the population of people with disabilities, it's almost 0%. Like almost no one of the about 50 million people with disabilities in the world. And we're talking about only severe disabilities. So disabilities that really affect the ability to use the limbs. So there's about 50 million people and almost none of them play music.
How can we make music more accessible and inclusive? That's the mission of the organization that we are focusing on in this week's episode. EyeHarp is the first musical instrument that allows people with disabilities to play music using eye gaze or head movements. So not only can it help people collaboratively play music, but it also gives them an opportunity to actually learn to play different instruments as well. In this episode, we're interviewing Gil Dori from EyeHarp. We discuss the technology behind the platform and its commitment to making the musical experience more inclusive for everyone. So let's dive right in to learn more. Welcome back to the Assembling Inclusion podcast. Today, we're talking to Gil Dori from EyeHarp. Gil, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So just to start off, can you explain what EyeHarp is for our listeners?
Yes, EyeHarp is an accessible digital instrument, which means that the instrument itself is a software, and we use a special camera that detects the gaze, and you can actually play the instrument by looking at the notes on the screen. The software, it looks like it's like a round keyboard, so just like how you would imagine keyboard when you have like slices of different notes. So each note is like a circle and it's divided to slices, and each slice is a note. And when the player looks at a note, the instrument plays that note. And that way you can play melodies just by looking at the note, just by your gaze, or it also works with head movement detection.
So I actually came across EyeHarp I'm part of different accessibility and assistive technology groups on social media. And one of the assistive tech groups was posting about it. And they were talking about how to make teaching music more accessible for learners with different needs. And then it actually popped up on a music education page. There's so much technology with eye gaze and with head movement for students who may not have the ability to, physically touch the keys. So that's really great that that type of technology can help make music more accessible. Was there a specific inspiration for creating the product?
Yes, so the person who actually started it, Zach is my partner. He started it a while ago, like 10 or 11 years ago. So his friend who they used to play music together was in a motorcycle accident. At first, it wasn't clear if he would be able to use his arms again and play music. Then Zach just thought about okay, what happens if he can't use his arms? How could he play music? And then he started to think about different ways to make playing music accessible. And he started his master's degree at the Pompeu Fabra University in Barcelona. It's a sound and music computing master's, and he continued and did his doctorate there too. Both his master's project and his doctoral dissertation was about music and accessibility. He essentially developed EyeHarp during his studies, and the whole idea started just with that, was like how my friend could play music again. Eventually the guy was able to go back and use his arms and play music, but there are so many people who are excluded from playing music. I joined him also at that university. I just came there to do some project. I'm a composer, musician. He's more the programmer, computer scientist. I came to that university just to do some other project that has to do with music and technology, because that's a lot of the stuff I do in my work. Then I met Zach, and you know, just this thing just blew my mind, and I started working with him, and we later decided to take it out the university, and we started the company to continue and develop it, and to, well, our goal mainly is to get it to as many people as possible.
That's a really great story about how not only how the product got started, but then how you joined in and how it's evolved since it started at the university level. So I know you said you were more of the composer side, but like it's just a general overview of like the technical logistics of the platform. So you had said it's a circle on the screen with the different notes, and you can either move your head or gaze your eyes toward the different notes to have them play. So I'm assuming it's the software, right? And it could go on to just the device, or is there another technical component that needs to make it work?
Yeah, you just need the software and the actual eye tracking device or head tracking device. Most of the users already have their own device that they use to control their computer. So yeah, you just need to download software and start playing music.
That makes it nice and easy that they already have it. Some platforms of technology, you have to buy a specific product, but that's nice that, like you said, they do have their own head tracking, eye gaze software already. So the fact that they can just download your software and be able to take advantage of that tool is that's really nice and makes it a lot more accessible.
Exactly. And there's also like, it's not tutorials either, but it's a method, I guess, that help you to learn music. So even if you're just starting, even if you don't have a musical background, you can just start with EyeHarp and learn as you go. And the software helps you learn. Built in with the software, there's like repertoire of songs and exercises and ways to practice songs, and a memory game that you can use to learn songs and learn how to play. So it's really built for people to just download it and start using it.
I was going to ask you about that, the adaptability piece of it, because I saw that on the website and I thought that was really nice. If you already, like, in Zach's story, you had mentioned that his friend already played music and obviously was familiar with notes and things like that. So that would be a different level than a young student who is new to music and just learning the notes. So that's nice that the software is geared to really any level.
Yeah, because basically you can use it just like any other instrument. Like, for example, I was just talking to a friend about like the scales thing. So you can have fixed scales. So let's say I want to use just a major scale. So I can just play the major scale. I can switch it to a minor scale, just switch to a minor scale or whatever scale. But then you can also just set it to show all the 12 notes. And then you just play freely and move between scales just like you do with a piano or, I don't know, guitar or a violin or flute or any other instrument, any traditional instrument. For players that already know music and they're more, let's say, a higher level of music abilities, they can just use it as any instrument. For those who are just starting, they can change the interface of the software just to make it more friendly and more usable for their musical level. And so it could be like limiting the number of notes or using like an error silencer. So if you play from one of the songs in the repertoire, you can follow instructions. It's like a score. We call it the EyeHarp score. It just shows you like the notes that you're supposed to play and in what time. And so you can follow it and learn the song this way. But you can also silence error. If you, let's say, prone to accidentally play notes that are not part of the melody, it automatically silences these notes. So you play only the notes of that melody. or you can adjust there's an audio guide too, and there's a visual guide, and you can adjust that. It's really for anyone. We do have players that are professional musicians. They still play music and be active in the music world. We have a guy in Cyprus who is a composer, and he's been, doing music all his life, and now he's not able to play the piano or write music the way he used to, but he still uses iHarp to create melodies, and people still play and record the melodies that he writes. There's another player in Turkey who's absolutely amazing. He's by far the best iHarp player in the world, and he plays music like classical music and jazz and film music, like music at the highest level, really. And he plays it with the iHarp, and he plays at concerts, and he has amazing videos that he records. And then we also have students just starting, and we start like from the very basics, which is also nice to see the progress, because using the tools that iHarp has, and especially if you do it with a teacher, the progress can be very quick. So like after 1 or 2 lessons, anyone can play a simple melody. It's pretty immediate.
That's a really nice range. And I think I saw there was a video on the iHarp website. I think it was the player you had said from Turkey. Just listening to it, you wouldn't know that it was on a device and that he was using his eyes to track. I have to link that in the show notes so people can take a look.
Yeah, we have a whole page with performances, and just uploaded yesterday a really cool new video, a really cool, totally different project than what we normally do with our classes or with our performances. My very good friend, Justin Kennedy, who is a composer as well, and is a professor at Western Carolina University. He is also very interested in music and accessibility, but he approaches it from studio work. So how to make working in a studio more accessible. And he came up with the idea of doing a whole performance only with iHarp and only with controlling analog synthesizers. So for listeners who are not musicians, who don't know exactly what I mean by analog synthesizer, back in the days, so like in the 80s and 70s, before music was really computerized, all the electronic music was done with synthesizers that were electronic, but they were not digital. They used actual electricity and analog signal to produce and control the sound. Usually the synthesizers are used with like knobs and buttons and keyboards that you would actually press and twist and change. So playing these synthesizers is very physical. And what we did with this project was to make it possible to play these physical synthesizers just by mapping them to iHarp. You could actually control a physical device with your eyes through iHarp. And that was an amazing project. It was really difficult to pull off, and I really applaud Justin for doing it. I helped with everything I could, but like he was really the engine behind this project. In the end, he was playing with the eyes, and our student was playing with the eyes, because it was important for him to also take part of this type of music making. So this is video that we just uploaded, so it's really cool to check out.
I'll definitely make sure to link that in the show notes too, and I have to check that out. That sounds really interesting. And it's great that so many people are able to kind of take this product and then transform it and innovate new ways to use it. One of the things I wanted to ask about with iHarp was on the website, there's a statement that says that the assistive technology should be accessible to everyone. And you talked about how there's a lot of ways that the content is accessible, like learning to use the music and things like that. But also with regard to costs, when you're thinking about like assistive technology, that's always kind of the barrier, right? That some things are so expensive. But I noticed that iHarp has the free version as well as the paid version. So what's the difference between the two? I mean, I'm sure the paid has a little bit more extra features, but what does the free version enable people to do?
First of all, just like you said, it's the issue with expensive technology. It's especially problematic with accessibility and with people with disabilities that need to use these technologies, but they're also very, very expensive. We really want to make it available to anyone, regardless of financial situation or financial help. We do offer EyeHarp for free. The basic version is free. It has all the basic instrument features, what I mentioned earlier, like the scales and the adaptability and everything that makes the instrument accessible and adaptable and flexible. The free version includes all of that. So the idea is not a barrier between the free version and the paid version. The paid version has all the extra features, which is the instruments. The free version comes with only a piano sound, but in the full version, you can choose between 25 instruments. Then the song catalog is also included only in the paid version. There are like small stuff like the ability to use EyeHarp as a MIDI controller. So again, a musical term, MIDI is a protocol for digital music to transmit data about the sound. And there are like different MIDI controllers, like the keyboard that you can connect to your computer and play. The keyboard is a MIDI controller, so the keyboard sends MIDI data to the computer and the computer produces the sound. You can use EyeHarp the same way. You can use it as a MIDI controller. That option is more limited in the free version. But also, when you first download EyeHarp, you sign up on our website and you get a download link, and you also get the full version for a month for free. The idea also is to give people enough time to try all the features before they decide if they want to use just the free version or because again, in the end, our goal is to reach out to as many people as we can and to have more and more people play music. From our little market research, we found that about of the general population, about 20% of the people play an instrument. But in the population of people with disabilities, it's almost 0%. Like almost no one of the about 50 million people with disabilities in the world. And we're talking about only severe disabilities. So disabilities that really affect the ability to use the limbs. So there are about 50 million people and almost none of them play music. Our goal is to raise those numbers. Our company, it's a non-profit initiative. Our goal is to have enough funds and income to keep EyeHarp running. We offer different options for purchasing the license. So again, for people with different financial means, they can have the different options of how they want to purchase it.
That's great. There's so many options. If they want to get a different subscription level based on their financial needs or their musical needs, then at least they have some flexibility. I always appreciate the fact that part of that is free and they can try it and see what works for them. So we talked a little about the performances and how they're used at a professional level. And you had mentioned the adaptability and how you could use it if you're teaching students to learn music. Have there been any like schools or music therapy programs that have implemented EyeHarp with like students or younger age children? And how has that worked out?
There are a few. There's a music therapy center in the UK, and there's one in Netherlands, and here in Spain. There's a school in Australia and Sweden. So, for example, our student who played with Justin and they did the electronic music stuff, so he goes to like a regular music school and he takes EyeHarp classes there. And that's been going great. I mean, he also plays at the school's orchestra and he plays with ensembles in the schools. In the other schools, that's what's happening too. It really touches the point of inclusivity and social inclusion and inclusion in activities that without EyeHarp, there was this barrier. One of our main goals is to help with including more people in these musical activities that are really important for everything, for your brain, your mental health, your self-esteem, your motivation. In music therapy, we're starting now to implement it at the Boston Children's Hospital, where they have a big team of music therapists. And it's amazing they have all the devices and all the equipment and everything and the personnel. So this is really exciting. And I'm looking forward for that because they are also going to provide us a lot of data of how the children there are going to use EyeHarp there. From what we hear from the other music therapy centers is that it's a great tool for music therapy because therapists can really modify what they do with each patient or with each person that they're working with, which is different than a lot of the standard music therapy tools. Usually the therapist will play an instrument with the patient and the involvement of the patient wouldn't be as much in the aspect of the music making part of the session. But with EyeHarp, they really participate.
That's really exciting to hear about what's being done in the therapy programs, but also how it's expanding. That'll be really exciting to have that data coming back from that as well to see how that goes. You talked about a lot of the successes that have come through this product, but what do you think has been the biggest success so far from EyeHarp?
The first really big performance in Barcelona. So we've done other bigger concerts since, but I think that was the point where everything kind of dropped and realized that the thing could be like really huge. Like until then, yeah, we did some performances and we did a really cool project here in Barcelona with 2 centers for people with disabilities where we gave them EyeHarp classes and then we did a big concert in the end with professional musicians and with the students, and that kind of opened the way for that concert that happened in the theater. The first performance, which is also on our website, was kind of like the realization of this actually can really change the world. Like it sounds cliche, but it's a big theater, it's a huge stage. Our student was up there with professional musicians playing to a full house. It was before the pandemic. That was the highlight in our work. There were many other success stories. There was the pandemic, and once everything started to open up, we had a big performance in Madrid, again at the Royal Concert Hall there. But even during the pandemic, we did a really nice online concert with students. So students from all over the world joined the Christmas concert. That also was an important event for us because it showed that we can even do it online and really extend it to anywhere in the world. So we're basically not limited by anything.
Well, those are some really big successes, and it sounds like there will definitely be a lot more successes in the future.
I hope so.
I just want to thank you, Gil, for being here with us today and telling us all about EyeHarp and how it's making music more inclusive.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you want to check it out, go to eyeharp.org. Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Assembling Inclusion podcast. I hope the information in this episode taught you something new, gave you a new idea, or showcased a new perspective. If you liked the episode, feel free to leave us a review or comment. If you have a recommendation for an individual or an organization who would make a great guest, you can message us on Twitter or Instagram or send us an email at assemblinginclusion@gmail.com. See you next time.